Workers' rights during the Gilded Age in the modern day. Low wages. Many workers during the Gilded Age were paid low wages because there was no regulation or no such thing as a minimum wage, so companies were able to pay workers whatever they wanted. Wages were so low that most families had most members working some sort of job in order to survive. Child labor was also a common theme during the Gilded Age. Many children had to sacrifice an education in order to work a job, and help their family make ends meet. Long hours. Many workers during the Gilded Age had to work very long hours. Again, there was no restrictions on the amount of hours one could work at first. For example, a seamstress had to work in a factory for up to 12 hours a day, 6 days a week. And also, since there was no governmental regulation, workers were not entitled to vacations, sick leave, unemployment compensation, or reimbursement for injuries sustained in the workplace. There's also many dangerous conditions in the workforce. It was in factories specifically. It was a common theme to see workers die in work-related incidents in factories, and many factories that people worked in were dirty, poorly ventilated, and contained dangerous and sometimes faulty equipment. So, rise of the unions. Due to the issues that many workers faced, unions began to arise. Some of these unions include the National Labor Union, Knights of Labor, and the American Federation of Labor. Although each of these units were different, they all sought to better workers' rights. And despite the rise of the unions, though, big companies used many means in order to prevent unions, such as ironclad oaths and yellow dog contracts, which prevented workers from joining these unions. So now I want to discuss two examples of workers fighting back against the injustices they faced. So one of these examples can be seen with the Homestead Strike. The Homestead Strike was a violent labor dispute between the Carnegie Steel Company and many of its workers. What happened was the contract between the union, which a large majority of the workers were a part of, and Carnegie Steel was set to expire in July 1892, but Carnegie gave permissions to break the union before this deadline. So the first thing that the company did was cut the wages of the workers, and the union rejected this wage cut. So eventually the company decided to fire all 3,800 workers from Carnegie Steel, from the Homestead plant, and they brought in the Pinkerton agents to occupy the plant. So then the workers who were fired feared that they were going to get replaced by non-union workers, so they decided to rush the steel plant, where they got into a clash with the Pinkerton agents, and the whole ordeal was about the workers' struggle for fair treatment. Another example can be seen with the Pullman strike. Due to the panic of 1893, the Pullman Palace Car Company cut the wages of its workers by about 25%, but they did not decrease the rent prices at its company town, where many workers lived with their families. This is another example of companies being taken advantage of. And also, it's important to note, in both of these cases, the government sided with the companies and not the workers. So another example of the workers being left on their own and the government taking the side of the big business bosses or robber barons. So modern day workers' rights. The workers' rights of the modern day are basically the exact opposite of the Gilded Age. Essentially, everything that was wrong with the Gilded Age has been fixed in modern corporations. So in this sense, modern corporations are not similar to the Gilded Age monopolies, as workers' rights are so much better than they were during the Gilded Age. They're so much better now than they were in the Gilded Age, sorry.